Hi, HR Nation. It's Chris Rainey. Welcome to HR Leaders, the show where we interview today's most successful and innovative HR practitioners 5 days a week. Today, we have a special guest. We're joined by Cheryl Cran. Cheryl is the founder of NextMapping and author of NextMapping, the Anticipate, Navigate, and Create the Future of Work. Cheryl, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Chris?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us. I've been excited about this conversation for some time now. So I really appreciate it.
Me too.
Fantastic. For the listeners and our members that aren't aware of your work, give us some insight to the work that you're doing but your journey to where we are today.
So I'm a future of work and change leadership expert. And I make sure I say it that way because I'm not just a futurist that focuses on trends. I'm actually an expert that helps organizations implement the how. So we hear a lot about the why, but we help with the how do we create the future of work that organizations are heading into. As far as the journey, I don't think you want the whole sordid tale of my background, but I'll give you the short version. My background is finance and insurance before I started my own consulting firm in 1997. My firm, after interning with a consulting firm called Kaizen Consulting, I went off on my own after working with them. We worked with a lot of oil and gas finance clients, helping them at that time with leadership strategy, business strategy, helping organizations create that next strategy to be competitive and to have the competitive advantage. So my background's varied. I mean, with all the clients I've worked with since 1997, so just 21 years now, industries include the technology industry, clients like AT&T, Gartner, Silk Road, Aperio, Upwork. Those are some of the clients, just to name a few. In the manufacturing industry, the American Manufacturing Association, a lot of big organizations, the insurance industry I've worked, and actually defense industry. So probably about a dozen industries or more. So I bring a real variety of content. Exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So where did the idea of NextMapping come from?
Yeah, we worked with the branding firm, to be very honest, Chris. All my years of work, I'd written a number of books. I've got my 7th book coming out, which you mentioned at the beginning. All my books were about leadership. They were all about looking for the trends of what was happening next. And all of my consulting work, and myself and my colleagues, has been around helping organizations prepare for the future. So when we worked with the branding company, they actually interviewed clients and interviewed colleagues, and NextMapping was born. My brand before NextMapping was "The future of work is now. Are you ready?" That was sort of my tagline. And they realized that what I do is what I said earlier. We don't just give the future and what's happening. We actually give the how. And so you may have heard of Simon Sinek. He talks about the why, starts with why.
Yep.
And my motto is, behind every why, there's a how. And so we're the how.
And honestly, when we keep hearing this, especially in the HR community, the future of work, it's a real buzzword of the hour. But I think I'm glad you mentioned that you focus on the how, because that's what not many people are.
No, they're talking about the future, but there's no how.
There is no how. And you were, honestly, one of the reasons I was so excited to get you on the show is you were one of the first people that I came across that actually broke down and created a process for that. And I was really excited about it because I was like, I keep hearing this from the CHROs and all of our members, but no one has actually addressed the how.
Exactly.
Everyone's spoken about the why and everything else, but not the how. So I'm really excited about that. So in terms of the leaders then, what skills do leaders need to navigate the future of work? Because that's something I keep hearing from a lot of the members in our community. What is it going to look like moving forward, the skill set of a leader in the business?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so I have a white paper on my site called "If Robots Are the Future of Work, What Does It Mean for Humans?" And I address this exactly point in that there's been a lot of hype around robotics, AI, automation, and how it's going to take over a whole bunch of jobs. There's actually research that says absolutely not true. What robotics, automation, and AI is doing, taking jobs, but it's not replacing leaders. And what that means is jobs that are tasks, not jobs that require people to lead, to inspire, to empower. We will always need that. What technology will do is take over those mundane things that we don't want to do anyway. And it's already doing that. For many of us who use smartphones and, smart homes, we're already leveraging technology. The skills that leaders need for the future are completely the ones that have not been valued until now. And so those skills include emotional intelligence, high EQ, agility and innovation, the ability to create real-time solutions between people and leveraging technology. So the ability to link technological solution with people solution is a huge leadership skill as we move forward. A lot of feedback I hear from millennials is my boss might know strategy, but they don't know how to leverage our technology. Right. So that's a, technology innovation. How do we leverage the technology that we already have? A lot of organizations still hung up on legacy technology and reluctant to move into cloud-based solutions and collaborative technologies. If you're a leader listening and your teams are not engaging with the technology available to solve problems, you're not going to be able to recruit millennials and Gen Zs, and you're certainly not going to be able to retain them. So the future of work leadership skills, being a better human, is going to make you a better leader, in short.
Fantastic. And I can relate to that because as a young leader, I'm very tech savvy and close to this. And when I started our organization, we started our business on the platform of technology because as a startup, we need to automate process, whether that's the chatbot, whether that's the chatbot we've embedded on our website, which costs me $10 a month, but saves me 3 or 4 days a month, whereas the APIs that we have between all of our systems. And I have no tech background, is just realize that I need to make sure that I focus my time on value add tasks instead of actually doing these. And that's why I completely agree with you. Technology is definitely not replacing, it's empowering. I feel like it's empowering us to do more and spend our time on more value add tasks. Do you think the mindset shift is a big issue? Because I've recently met with a few of the leaders in my previous company, former CEO, former MD of my business where I spent 10 years. And I was explaining, we're in the same industry. And I was explaining the types of tools and technology we use, and they were just so confused. And so, like, what do you mean you're using a chatbot? And what do you mean you're using, automated this? And, because they were still doing it in a very traditional sense. And they're like, how have you managed to grow a podcast to 500,000 listeners in 1 year? We've been running for 10 years and we haven't achieved that. Well, I was like, well, because these are the technologies I've used. So it seems like a mindset shift.
Chris, you're a great example. So because of your generation, you've never even thought of building your business any other way than from a technology foundation. Yeah. So what's happened is, and you're right, and in our NextMapping process, we talk about mindset as part of the ideate phase, because most people are in a mindset of this or that, or very linear mindset. And Peter Diamandis talks about this, who's one of the co-founders of Singularity University, in that the future requires us to have a very flexible mindset. And that means we have to build multiple perspectives. And so I have a model that I share with clients called the multiple perspectives model that helps people identify where their thinking is and where their thinking might be blocking them from the technology innovation or the people innovation that's required. And a lot of times it's simply, we get, our ego gets us to think, well, I'm already successful, I don't need to do this. And my whole job as a consultant and as a keynote speaker is to say that mindset's actually going to prohibit you from creating your future. And if you don't see that all this technology is leading us towards creating a better future for humans, a better planet. Peter Diamandis says we have a more abundant future. There's less poverty today than there was before. But if your mindset is we're going to hell in a handbasket, or if your mindset is we can't afford to implement new technology, then you are risking being in that percentage of 40% of Fortune 500s who are not going to exist in the next 10 years. And I'm being very bold to say that, but that is the truth.
No, we're seeing it. It's a reality, right?
We're seeing it happen.
Mm-hmm. You can only look around you.
Blockbuster, Kodak, gas-powered cars. We're seeing the transformation happen around us.
All around us, right? And the creative thing about it is technology is actually saving me money, and it's actually making me more money and saving me time. So it's actually relieving all of the pain points that we have as a business.
Quick story, Chris. I was speaking in Boston yesterday, and it was a primarily baby boomer crowd. And by the way, I'm not saying that all baby boomers need to change their mindset, so I don't want to irritate people, but I do want to say that there is a portion of the baby boomer crowd that really is still reluctant with technology, okay? So there's still a percentage of that. And this woman came up to me, and a gentleman said, can you take a picture of me and Cheryl? And she didn't know how to use the smartphone. So I looked at her and said, look, you can't make a mistake. Just push a button. Like, don't be afraid of the technology. And so she got a little bit embarrassed. And I said to her, what happened here is exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't know how to use the technology, young people, millennials, Gen Zs, they're not afraid. They just push buttons until they figure it out. They just use the technology innately. They're not worried about being embarrassed. And I
That's
think
the only
that's
difference, right? That's what's crazy.
That's exactly it.
Only
It's the
difference.
only difference. So if you feel embarrassed, it means you're worried about your ego. You're worried about looking stupid. Let's get over that. And let's just use and leverage the technology. And if I don't know how to use the technology, let me ask someone who knows.
Mm-hmm.
It's really that simple.
You know, I feel like I am someone who's open to new technology as well, but even the next generation beneath me, they're even more open. My 6-year-old nephew is, I've currently got him on a coding course because he doesn't understand what difficult looks like. He doesn't understand what failure, he's not close to that at the moment. There is no fear of loss or embarrassment. He is just going through the courses so fast. And when I came back, a few weeks later, he's so far ahead. I don't even understand what he's doing. He's 6. I don't even. I have now don't know what he's doing. Like, yeah.
So Chris, what you just described is there's the millennial generation, which you're part of. So there's millennial, but the Gen Zs, are there anybody 20 and younger?
Yeah.
So millennials are known as the technological digital natives.
Mm-hmm.
The Gen Zs are known as the robotic natives. In other words, they're the age of robotics. They're going to transform our future by not only AI, API, chatbot, but we're going to be having robotics solutions. And I talk about this in my presentations. I talk about care bots in the healthcare industry, lifting heavy patients. I talk about exoskeletons that are being worn in manufacturing so people can lift heavier objects. So these technologies are absolutely enhancing our lives. They're not causing problems. They're enhancing. So I could go on and on because I get super excited about it.
No, and we're seeing it as well. Like I've been following a lot with like the VR in supply chain, using the VR headset in supply chain in terms of board. It's so incredible as well. And you have to look at anyone who, as I said, like who's below 10, etc. I was actually playing another story just very briefly because I was playing Minecraft with him, right? And he said to me, Uncle, Chris, we need to switch servers. And I was like, you're 6. And he's like, no, you need to go into the settings because you're on the US server and then we need to go on the EU server so we get a better connection. It's like, you're 6. And I was just looking around the room. I was like, did you just seriously say this to me? So yeah, it blows my mind.
So was he teaching you about VPN, or we're talking the server within the game?
Like, so within the game, whether you're on an EU server or a US server. And I had it on the long run. And he was like, what are you doing? Just going slow. We need to switch over to the EU server.
So good.
So what can people expect from the book? Because you've got the process outlined in there. Tell us a bit more about it.
Yeah, so the book is really about the how, really, to be quite simple. So it's really about, we're talking about the future. I start the book, part 1 is how do we anticipate the impact of the future? So it's all about technology, which you and I are talking about now. How is technology changing the world and the business? And it's also about human trends. Like, what are the trends in human behavior that is causing us to really have to change what we're doing quickly, because customer experience is top of the game for organizations, and then employee experience. So that's the first part. Part 2 is navigate. How do we navigate the future? What are the mindsets? What are the skills? What are the structures and the processes that organizations need to have in place to be ready for the future of work that's happening now? And then the last part is I actually take the NextMapping process, the whole 6 steps, and I spell it out. What does it mean in action in an organization? Now, I've had people say to me, why are you sharing your process, Cheryl? Consultants usually don't. And I'm like, because I'm modeling the future of work, which is open source. And either you're going to hire me to help you do this, or I'm going to give you at least the basics so that you can see that if you want to make this happen in your organization, here's how you can do it. So the book is very much a how-to manual on how do we create the future of work that's already here? How do we stay ahead of the competition? How do we anticipate and change the business models now so that we're not disrupted and literally out of business in the next 5 to 10 years?
What surprised you the most when you was writing the book?
What surprised me the most?
Yeah, what was the standout moment or something?
Nothing surprised me, because I've been in this now. I mean, I've been researching future work for a decade, so there was no surprise. I mean, I'm constantly, just like you, I'm looking every day at World Economic Forum, Singularity University, constantly researching and learning about what's going on, what's happening.
What about the feedback from the members? If you could briefly walk us through the 6 the 6 steps that you have in there.
Yeah,
Or
I
maybe
knew you were going to ask me that. You're going to ask me to memorize them, right?
Yeah, I was trying to be nice, but I was like, I really want to share it with you.
Yeah. So let's see if I can do this, because even though I wrote about them and I have them, I don't have them in front of me. But the first step is discover. And with the discover phase, you basically do an assessment of where are we now? Where are we now? What's been our history? What are our technology solutions now? Who are our people that we have now? It's basically a map of, this is our current situation. This is where we are on the map. The second stage is iterate, where we bring outside perspective as an organization. So we actually involve through external surveys, customer surveys, but also through research in that particular industry. And we blend all of that where they were now to looking at the trends, and we iterate that, and we say, okay, this is what we see as outside experts in what could be disrupted in your organization, or how you could make the changes needed in order to minimize negative disruption. The next stage, discover, iterate, model, and then it's integrate, map, and no, integrate's the last.
Iterate,
model,
map, integrate.
That's right. Okay, sorry. So
by the way, I would not remember it either.
You're looking at it. Yeah,
I'm looking at it, guys, for everyone listening. So I'm cheating.
This is terrible. They're going, oh, she doesn't even know her own model. I do, trust me, but I live it and work it with my clients every day, but I don't always articulate it clearly. So literally, without going through all of it, because it would take us long.
No, I understand.
Yeah, I will say that what we do after we do all the processes, we map it out. And so we give an actual map of where you are, all the innovation trends, all of the ideas that we bring in, modeling and saying, okay, this is where we think it can go. And then the map shows this is where you have opportunities. And we provide 3 different opportunities. So you might say, your roadmap for the future is we're going to disrupt very little of what's already going on, and we're going to leverage leadership skill development, or we're going to leverage employee development. We might give you an option 2. Option 2 might be, we're going to give you a mid-level disruption where you're going to disrupt your technology and you're going to build new cloud solutions or build on the cloud solutions that you've already got in place, along with employee mindset, team training, and those kinds of things. Level 3 is, and that's where we say we're going to turn everything on its head, and you're ready to disrupt the entire model. So just like you said, Chris, we built our business from technology. I think it was Steve Jobs who said years ago, every firm in the future is a technology firm. And and that's the major disruption. So that's our third option is, are you ready to really turn your organization on its head in regards to technological solutions? And for me, it's not about technology being the answer. It's about people first. Technology empowers the people impact. And that, to me, and that for HR leaders, that's it, exactly. Right? We know that it's people first. However, if you're ignoring the technology integration and you're ignoring the innovation, so that's a big part of the mapping process, the NextMapping process, is what are the innovative solutions to the challenges that we've been dealing with for the years or decades that we've been in business. So that's my short answer. For anybody who wants to know the NextMapping process, if you go to the website nextmapping.com and click on consulting, the entire process is iterated there. So
don't worry, guys. I'll leave it in the link in the description for
Perfect.
you, so you can all have that.
Thank
and
you.
Sorry for putting you on the spot.
Yeah, that's okay. No. I mean, I didn't have it in front of me, so I did the best with what I could.
No, of course. What's HR's role in this, and how do you feel that they can have a big impact?
Well, HR, probably those listening are doing some level of what we're talking about. Obviously, I mean, HR leaders are already highly successful. In my experience, most HR leaders are on the awareness, or they're either aware of all of this and they're including it in their strategies with their organization, or they're on the leading edge of it and they're going, yes, we're right on track, Cheryl, with everything you're saying, and we're doing all the things you're saying. I will tell you that I worked recently with a client who their HR admitted that they were not doing half of the things that they knew they needed to do. And the reason they said they weren't doing it was the organization's very large. There's a lot of legacy mindsets in the organization.
You're putting it right. You're putting it delicately.
Yeah. I'm trying to be kind here. And in the conversation, that HR executive, by the way, asked me a lot of very good questions. So one of his questions was, so Cheryl, what do you do about losing, we're losing a lot of people through retirement. What about knowledge transfer? I looked him right in the eye and I said, are you using technology for knowledge transfer? He looked at me and he said, no.
He said, there's a technology for that?
That's right. I said, first of all, even at the base level of technology, you should be interviewing every one of your current and future retired people. Because that's one gentleman that hired me for that event, 43 years on the job, 43 years of wisdom that is going to walk out of that company. And I said to him, at the very base, what I instruct my clients to do, if you don't want to use collaborative technology, if you don't want to leverage the intranet, if you don't want to do all those things to knowledge transfer, at the very base level, you need to have somebody sit down in front of that gentleman with a video camera and ask him every day from now until the day that he retires, everything he knows. And it gets cataloged and stored, and technology stores it in a data bank that anybody can find once he's left. And the HR executive looked at me and he said, we can't do that. I said, well, then there's your answer. You're going to lose.
But why not? Did they say why not? Because
the reason he said they couldn't do it is we don't have the time and we don't have the manpower. And I said, if you don't make
what's
the time,
the cost? If you don't
the cost is they will not exist in business, Chris.
I'm hearing exactly the same thing, by the way. When you were saying what you were, I was like, all of the clients I see speaking to, you know, a lot of the global business, they are aware of it. It's on the agenda, but they just never get around to.
Nothing's being done.
No.
Nothing's being done.
And a big part of that is what you're solving, which is one of the reasons I was so excited to talk to you, because they don't know where to start.
Yeah. So here's my thing is if you don't have the manpower inside and you don't have the bandwidth, that's what outside consultants are for. Hire a consulting firm, get them come in to videotape all of your people that are retiring, make it an outsourced project. The money, you can't afford to lose that knowledge. But here's the thing, once you gather the knowledge, now AI can do its magic because, and machine learning can do its magic, because if I interview a dozen people in an organization for knowledge transfer, machine learning and AI is going to find those patterns and it's going to link it up. So technology can take it to that next level. But we need to gather the data as a preliminary step.
Yeah.
So it's a scary thing right now. And trends are showing that many baby boomers are actually going to get hired back on contract. So that's one, but that's still a temporary solution. It's not holding the data within the organization. And in this organization, the average millennial or Gen X is 5 years on the job if they like their leader. If the average is like 3 to 5 years. So you're still going to have the challenge of losing knowledge unless you've got a technology solution to hold that knowledge within the organization.
We kind of covered it a little bit, but where would you advise HR leaders to start then in this
Well,
process?
obviously you would start with the discover process, and NextMapping is where are we now? Like you'd have to take a really hard look at where are we in succession planning? Where are we on knowledge transfer? Where are we on losing knowledge through project leaders and projects that we've had, that within the organization? That assessment would then lead to, okay, where do we start? So in my opinion, like there's, it's like typical priority, right? Well, what would happen? What is the most impact on the business? Like if we lose a dozen people by the end of December, what does that mean for the viability of the future of the company? As an HR leader, I would be looking at what's the biggest potential business impact if we don't deal with it right now. Mm-hmm. And that in most cases, I'll tell you from my experience, it's knowledge transfer and succession planning. Because if you don't have succession planning, you're going to lose your top talent, millennials and Gen X, because they're going to just go elsewhere. They're not going to wait for you to figure it out. To add to your question about what could HR do, and if you're not already doing this, I believe HR still in many organizations operates as a silo. And right now, you need to be reaching out to your other strategic stakeholders. If you're an HR leader, you need to be building alliances with the other stakeholders, and IT would be my next best friend, because I would be going to IT and saying, okay, guys, you need to help me come up with a strategic solution for knowledge transfer and for succession planning. What's the technology solution so that I can build it with my people solution? That is number one. Number two, I want to make friends with legal. I want to make friends with compliance. I want to make friends with accounting. I want to make friends with, and if you're not already, and when I say make friends, I'm talking strategic dialogue, not just I'm HR and of course I'm friends with everybody. I'm talking strategic dialogue around what's your input on what we're thinking of doing here, because a lot of organizations, every department is still very siloed, and it's the silos that are going to really be the detriment to the future of that business. Right now, the most successful businesses have real-time collaboration. They're leveraging cloud solutions so that they can message, they can use Google Docs or whatever it is, Salesforce, whatever those cloud-based solutions are. Workforce by Facebook. There are so many solutions. What are they using, and are they making friends with IT so that we're coming up with solutions that are both a people solution, but also a technology solution.
Traditionally, HR is not grounded in the technology as their base, right?
I know.
They're not built. A lot of the functions aren't built on a foundation of technology, to put it lightly. And the skill set of a HR leader as well, when you talk about AI, robotics, predictive learning, prescriptive,
Yes.
etc. These are all very new.
Yes.
Very, how do you suggest to HR leaders or our listeners prepare for this? Because it's great that we have this process, but personally, to be able to lead this.
As an HR leader in your learning development, again, I'm being really straight with everybody. You need to be better. You have to be better technology. You have to learn technology to a higher level than you already do. So here's my experience in 20 plus years as a consultant. When I meet with leaders, they have 4 different personality types. Every HR knows this. They know about DISC. They know about all the personality types. But now we're talking about proficiencies. So if I am a people person, my proficiencies are likely that I'm very good with people, but I probably struggle with technology. Now I'm generalizing here. There will always be exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm an IT expert, in my experience, the reason I do so much work with companies like Gartner is they have a bunch of IT experts, but they're lousy at people skill. So when Gartner hires me, so I'm hiring IT leaders to have that people perspective so that they can better develop the technology for people. So HR leaders, in my experience, and I'm generalizing, but they're very good at people. That's why they're so valued in the organization. And they need to leverage their knowledge of technology and how technology can help the HR help HR not only as a strategic function of the business, but help people better communicate and collaborate and innovate within the organization, which in my surveys and all the work and research I've done, the biggest response from people is, we are too siloed. I don't know what other departments are doing. I don't know who to reach out to when I want to innovate or collaborate. So HR needs to solve this problem. And the only way they can solve it is to up-level their knowledge of technology.
Traditionally, the companies that you're working with, who in these organizations, who's normally leading this? Is it HR? Is it, the CEO?
Right. That's a great question.
Who traditionally... I see a huge opportunity for HR here to have a massive impact on the organization, which is why I feel that they're perfectly positioned in the business to have the relationships. Yeah.
That question is probably the most brilliant question I've ever been asked, in that the HR leaders have the opportunity to be and lead this future that we're heading to. See, HR used to be a function of, it was always thought of as an afterthought, right, in the business. But now they have to be driving the future of work because it's about people first. But you won't have a CEO listen to you, and you won't have a COO listen to you, and you won't have a CIO listen to you unless you can talk the strategic talk. And so I believe the opportunity for HR is learn to integrate strategy, talk the language of your CEO, COO, leverage the CIO's knowledge, learn more about the technology so you're talking on an equal playing field. The future of this is going to be led by HR leaders. That is the future. Right now, in small to mid-level organizations, the CEOs are still driving it because they know that their business viability is where we're going. The CEOs are looking for strategic partnership with their HR leaders, their CHROs. So I believe the future is going to be CEO, COO, CHRO, CIO. That's the team of those 4 are going to make sure the business viability is going to sustain business moving forward. So that question is a brilliant question because it's really about CHROs leading this in order to create the future we're talking about here.
I completely agree with you. And we're starting to see it now more and more.
Yes, we are.
I'm starting to see it. And I'm starting to see a lot of companies are shifting. It's CEO, CHRO.
Right.
Because unless those two are aligned, then the rest is irrelevant, to be honest.
Well, and so in large multinational global organizations, there's still, it's difficult because they're so large, right?
Sure.
And they're still very much about executive team. A lot of them have gone to the executive team level. But I'm seeing now, in my experience, the CHROs included in that
conversation.
Team.
Yeah. But as you're right, unless they're speaking the language of the business and approaching it from this perspective, then that conversation is not going to happen.
And that's where the multiple perspectives comes in that I mentioned to you earlier. If you right now listening are HR leader and you're saying, well, what can I do? The number one thing, in addition to the technology, is building that multiple perspectives. What are each of the leaders and each of the other departments? What are their problems? What are the challenges they need to be solved? how can we work together? How can I better understand what their challenges are so that I can bring solutions, and together we can create solutions? That is a huge opportunity.
Fantastic. Well, Cheryl, that leads us quite nicely onto the quickfire round, where I'm going to ask you 5 questions.
Okay.
And you have no longer than 30 seconds to give us some amazing answers.
Pressure.
What was the number one thing that was holding you back from being a leader in your field?
I had too much ego.
Interesting. And when did you realize that?
I was very fortunate young. My first leadership position was at the age of 23. I had a boss who basically said, yes, you handle yourself well under pressure, but you're a lousy leader.
And those are the words you needed to hear.
I needed to hear that. It was a kick in the butt. And what it did for me at 23 is it put me on the path I'm on now, which is I want to be the best leader I could possibly be. I want to leave a legacy. I want to make a difference. And it was because of that feedback that it led me there. What's
the best piece of business advice that you've received?
As an entrepreneur or
both?
Generally?
Yeah, generally, yeah.
As an entrepreneur, the best business advice is never stop being hungry. Hungry to make a change, hungry to grow the business, hungry to adapt and be agile.
And hungry to learn.
Hungry to learn. If you're not, if you're not learning, then you're not growing.
But apart from your own, because we're definitely going to link that in the description for everyone, what's one book you'd recommend to our audience?
I would not hesitate. My immediate answer would be Abundance by Peter Diamandis. Phenomenal book about how we're actually more abundant than we think we are, and that the future is even more abundant than we think it is.
Fantastic. And could you share, you mentioned about personal development and you're always keeping up to date with what's happening. Could you share any websites or internet resources that you use that you sort of check every day that perhaps our listeners can go to check out more and keep themselves up to date?
So every day I'm on Twitter and I use the hashtag Future of Work to see what's the most recent stuff going on. In LinkedIn, I do the same thing. I'm checking out Future of Work on LinkedIn. As far as resources, World Economic Forum has really up-to-date research on global impact of everything from environment to technology, the entire thing. Singularity University. I am a student, I'm a graduate of the Exponential Innovation Program with Singularity University, and I'm also a member of the Abundance 360 online program with Singularity University. So I'm constantly learning about what's going on, what are some of the layest trends on futurism.org.
I follow that one. I spend a lot of time on that website. Neuronsinc.org. I just interviewed Dr. Thomas Ramsey, the founder of Neurons Inc. It's all about human behavior, and he's a behavioral scientist. So I'm looking at things on Future of Work, behavioral science, technology, innovation. That's where I hang out. Fantastic. Well, I'll certainly link those all for the members in the description. And then last question: what's one thing about your business personally that keeps you going and that you're most excited about?
Oh, well, it goes back to learning and growing because I'm working with multiple industries, multiple clients, different people. I feel very grateful that I get to make an impact with people, and it's always causing me to learn and grow. And those are my, I've been, when we talk about generations, I'm a Gen X Zoomer by age, but I am definitely a Millennial Gen Z in my nature to be an insatiable learner, to integrate technology. Learning and growing is my jam.
I can tell, and it's really refreshing, honestly. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us, Cheryl. You've definitely given us some great actionable advice, and I know our members and our listeners will be a lot better off for it. So thank you very much for that. Before we part ways, give our listeners, if there's one parting piece of guidance you can give to HR leaders listening, what would that be? And also, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you, check out more about your work, and get in touch?
I would say this to HR leaders listening: you're already fantastic. You're already doing a fantastic job. The only thing that I inspire you to do is what could you do to leverage your impact? Because if you're an HR leader, you want to help people, bottom line. And so the question I'd leave you with is, what can I do to leverage my impact? Do I need to learn more technology? Do I need to make friends with people that maybe I haven't desired to make friends with in other senior positions? And how can I focus on the biggest priority that's going to impact our business, that would matter to the CEO, that would matter to the senior executive team? As far as getting a hold of me, nextmapping.com. Join me on LinkedIn, Cheryl Cran, Twitter, Cheryl Cran, @CherylCran, and @NextMapping. I have both Twitter handles. And those are the ways to find me.
Fantastic. Well, guys, head over to hrleaders.com. There you'll find all of the show notes on episode. All of the links that Cheryl has mentioned will all be there. The link to the book, link to the website, everything that's mentioned will be there for you guys. Thank you again, Cheryl, for taking the time to join us. And I wish you all the best until we next speak.